Good morning, everyone. And by everyone, I mean Public Works staff and Lonnie.
Good morning.
Lonnie, are you ready for your private presentation?
Always pleased to hear Gary.
Oh, Lonnie, thank you. That's nice. But you got some other guys today too.
Well, I guess how about we give residents about 5 more minutes to see if we get anybody else jumping on the Zoom meeting. We are going live on Facebook right now, so we may have some people watching from Facebook. This will also be recorded, and I will share the recording and the newsletter and direct people to it as well. So we will get started here about 9:05. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Sounds great.
All right. All right, do we want to go ahead and get started?
That works for me. Sure.
Okay. For those of you watching on Facebook, Councilmember Clendenin is out of town this weekend. Lonnie, thank you for joining us on Zoom. Which one of you guys wants to kick off the Public Works presentation?
Gary, your call. Do you want to go first or do you want me?
All right, you go ahead, Ben.
Okay, that's fine. I'll start off, and if you'd like, I have a PowerPoint I can share.
Yeah, I will give you control. I'm gonna go ahead
Okay.
and make you the host
Okay,
so you can share your screen.
perfect.
And we'll go to speaker view. Take
Okay.
it away.
Can you guys see that on your screen?
Yep.
Okay. Let's see. Hold on just a second and I'll make this bigger for us. You guys can see that?
Yep, I can see it. Lonnie,
All right.
good?
Great. Well, so what I'll do is cover kind of an overview of our department, Public Works Utilities, what we do, just kind of a high level look at our department, and then dive down a little bit more into a couple of services that we get asked a lot of questions about, street sweeping and snow removal. And we'll transition at the end to give an update on our new water treatment plant that's under construction. So just to begin, what does Public Works do? We're a very large department. We have 763 positions, an annual operating budget of $271 million. We also have a sizable portion of the CIP. I believe what falls under Public Works is about $1.8 billion over 10 years, much of which is administered by Gary, and I'm sure he'll cover a lot of the projects that are ongoing that his engineering section manages. So we're a sizable department, but at the end of the day, really what we do is manage the city's infrastructure. The way we like to think of it is that we have individual asset groups or infrastructure groups, if you will, that make up our portfolio. We have 4 asset groups that are on our what we call our public works side, which is basically all the non-utility stuff. And then we have 4 asset groups that are part of our utilities. I'll start with an overview of Public Works. We have a sizable street network. It's 5,100 lane miles of paved streets. I believe it's about 90 miles of unpaved streets. This also includes more than 600 intersections that are signalized. We have approximately 60,000 traffic signs that we maintain as part of our street network. We also, as part of that, do street sweeping, snow removal, long line markings and updating those, and crosswalk markings. So it's a pretty comprehensive set of services for our streets. The next group is our public facilities group, not counting the airport and the transit enterprises. We manage 541 buildings. That is approximately 5.2 million square feet of floor space. So this is everything from corrective and preventative maintenance on major building systems, renovation, repair, renewal and replacement, as well as custodial care. The next one on Public Works is our fleet group. We maintain and purchase and dispose of more than 2,300 pieces of equipment. These are things like patrol cars that police use, our fire apparatus fleet, heavy equipment like dump trucks and street sweepers, as well as light equipment. We also manage 22 different fueling sites across the city of Wichita, where we have diesel and unleaded available for our employees. Finally, on the Public Works side, we have landfills, our landfill group. We have 1 active landfill that's open that takes construction and demolition waste, C&D waste. It's about 90,000 to 100,000 tons a year that we accept out at our Brooks site. It's up near K96 and West Street. We also have a closed municipal solid waste landfill that closed back in 2001, as well as other dump sites from years ago that we manage post-closure care to ensure that we meet all regulatory requirements. So that's what we do on the Public Works side. Utility side, we have a drinking water utility, wastewater utility, a stormwater utility, and we have a groundwater remediation section. So the drinking water is a large utility. We serve about 500,000 people, about 400,000 of whom live in Wichita. Another 100,000 or so live outside of Wichita. So we are a regional provider of water here in South Central Kansas. We have our 2 major supplies are Cheney Lake and the Equisbeds Aquifer. We also have an ASR project, Aquifer Storage and Recovery, that takes excess water flows from Little Arkansas and recharges the aquifer. We have a very old water treatment plant, a filter plant. I'll talk about its replacement here in a little bit. And we have transmission and pumping systems, including a high service pump station downtown and 4 other booster pump stations across the city. We have 3 water towers and 2,400 miles of distribution pipe. On the wastewater side, we have 3 treatment plants that operate, and they collect. There's water, the drinking water that gets used and gets collected in a system of about 2,200 miles of pipe. It's more than 60 lift stations, and then those 3 treatment plants process the water and clean it up so that we can discharge it safely into the environment. On the stormwater side, that handles all the drainage and the rainwater that comes down. We have several pump stations throughout the city and 1,200 miles of pipe. That group also maintains the big ditch, which is about 100 miles of levees, and that provides protection to, I believe it's 80 or 85,000 properties to take them out of the 100-year floodplain, so they get a break on their insurance through the big ditch. Finally, the utility section also has a groundwater remediation group. There's almost 8,000 acres of area here in the city of Wichita that has polluted groundwater where private wells for drinking water are not allowed. That is gradually being cleaned up over the next 30 to 40 years. All that ends up going to the water center at Pawnee and Broadway for treatment and eventual discharge back into the environment. So that's what we do. We're a large department. We handle a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, really, we're the city's infrastructure managers. I want to highlight street sweeping and snow removal. We get a lot of questions about those. Street sweeping is actually a requirement under something we call our MS4 permit. That's a municipal separated storm sewer permit that is for discharge from our storm sewers. There's a best management practice that requires us to do some level of street sweeping to keep all of that debris from getting into the storm sewers. We also know there's some aesthetics associated with it to have cleaner streets. Generally, we clean our residential streets on first shift. There's less on-street parking during that time, and there's a lower amount of disruption caused by the noise of the street sweepers when we do it during first shift. And so subsequently, that allows us to target our arterial streets on second and third shift when those are a little less traveled. When we're fully staffed, we're able to generally get to residential areas 1 to 2 times a year, depending on how much debris accumulates in different neighborhoods. We target our arterials to get swept 4 times a year, and then our central business district, we try to do a couple of times a week. That's when we're fully staffed. Right now, we've got a hiring freeze, as a lot of people know, so we're quite a bit lower than what we're normally able to do, but we're hopeful that once there's an economic turnaround, we're able to get back to our normal street sweeping cycles. The last thing I'd highlight on this is that the sweeping material that we take off, the debris that we take off the streets, we take up to our landfill and we screen it, and we're able to use most of that as cover material at the landfill. And over the last 5 years, that saved us more than $3 million. So we're effectively able to reuse what we take up off the streets. Snow removal gets a lot of attention this time of year. Hopefully it's a lighter year for us, but we're ready in case it's not. I'd like to highlight the personnel, the routes, the material, and the equipment we use just in general for response. I'll say we track a lot of our winter storm response based on the National Weather Service. It regularly updates every 4 or 5 hours generally forecasts for the subsequent maybe 4 or 5 days. And so we're able to see what the National Weather Service is tracking on a regular basis in terms of any sort of expected wintry precipitation. So sleet, snow, ice, or freezing rain. And so we use those forecasts to kind of craft our response. In terms of our snow removal responsibilities, generally we're in charge of the surface streets. Kansas Department of Transportation handles the freeways. When we have one of these storms, we have priority on the 1,500 lane miles of arterial city streets. And then as a secondary priority, we also treat 300 lane miles of secondary routes and school routes that lead up to educational facilities. When we have one of these storms, we, over the course of a 24-hour period, we have about 150 personnel who are operating the equipment, the dump trucks, the loaders at each of our substations. We also have about 15 to 25 other people we have on standby in case some of the regular responders are out on leave. So we have some contingency in case something happens. We also have additional staff in our fleet shop. We usually keep a couple of mechanics throughout the night, 24 hours, in order to fix any of the equipment that may break down during a snow event. We usually have one person in our parts room around the clock as well. On the street side, the 150 people are on around the clock 24-hour response. They rotating 12 hours on, 12-hour off shifts. and they plow and treat 25 routes throughout the city. We usually conduct operations training in October so that we're ready to go in case there's an event, which in this case, this year, we had a very early event last week, and so we were ready to go for that. In terms of material, we have a brine pretreatment that we sometimes use in advance of these storms. It's a liquid saline solution, 23% salt, 77% water, that adheres to the roadway, keeps some of the snow and ice from building up. We're not able to apply it when there's rainfall that precedes any of the snow and ice because it would just wash it off the roadway. So we only put it on when it looks like the first precipitation is going to be snow or ice. And then when we get into one of these storms, we have a 50% salt, 50% sand mix. The sand provides traction to drivers, and the sodium chloride salt that we use provides melting for the snow and ice. And the other kind of tangent on that is when the temperatures get really cold, our normal salt does not melt nearly as well. And so we supplement it with a calcium chloride salt that has a lower melting capacity. Finally, in terms of equipment for snow and ice, I believe we have 8 brine tanks that we can use for that optional pre-treatment, which can go days in advance of a storm. When we get into the storm, we have 60 trucks with the plows and that also have the material spreaders on the back. And we dispatch out of 3 locations, one just south of downtown, one in Northeast Wichita, and one out on our west side. So that's kind of an overview of snow removal. We kind of craft our response to National Weather Service forecasts, but in general, that's our approach. We'll talk real briefly about our pavement preservation program. I apologize, I meant to mention this. Each year we do an annual set of repairs on our streets. Our city council just passed the next pavement preservation program for 2021. They passed it on October 20th, $11.5 million that we've got slated, and we'll start bidding that out soon. So we'll highlight some of the treatment that we do. Brick crosswalk replacements. We got a lot of bricks that come out of these crosswalks all throughout the city. They've been a maintenance challenge for years, so we're gradually replacing those with stamped concrete. We also do concrete repairs, full depth removal, and then replacement of failed concrete sections. And this addresses a number of different issues that we see on some of our older concrete streets. We also have a set of miscellaneous repairs. We call them localized repairs, where streets a lot of times are in pretty good condition, but there's some problem with a curb or part of the gutter or some other portion of the street. And so we do a full repair on those, and the rest of the street's usually in good condition. Microsurfacing, it's a seal that we put down on the street. It's a mix of polymer modified emulsion and a mineral filler. And ultimately what this does is it keeps water out of the street. It fixes some of the surface irregularities that people see and extends the life of the pavement. We get a lot of benefit from this next one, crack seal, where we get a rubberized asphalt and fill in cracks all throughout a street, where a lot of times the street's in pretty good shape otherwise. What this does is it helps, again, minimize water intrusion, and it reinforces the adjacent pavement. So we get a lot of preservation of our streets with this crack seal work. We're able to do a lot of it for pretty inexpensive cost. We do a preservative seal in different areas. This is another seal coat that helps prevent water from getting into the street and improves the retention of the aggregate, the existing aggregate on the street. Final one I'd mention is an ultra thin bonded asphalt surface. This has been a very popular one for us in different areas where it's a very thin aggregate with an asphalt membrane that gets applied on top of the street. And you can see a before and after picture there. And so this also corrects some of the surface irregularities and aesthetically becomes very pleasing afterwards. And a lot of times, a lot of people confuse it for a new street. So these have been very helpful seal coats for us and preservative seals. Finally, I'll transition from streets to water treatment. I wanted to give an update on where we're at with our new water treatment plant. So our existing system has a lime softening and filtration plant. It's near downtown. It's parts of it were built back in 1939 and 1940. So portions of it are 80 years old that's had some failures along the way, been well publicized, so I won't get into a lot of those, but certainly it became, it's time to replace it. It's our single treatment plant that serves 500,000 people. So we've got a new construction project ongoing right now near just across the street from the zoo out in West Wichita, building 120 million gallon a day treatment capacity for that new facility. And it's fully redundant, meaning any asset can fail and go out of service. We're still able to deliver 120 million gallons a day through the facility. It, like our current plant, is a lime softening and traditional filtration plant. We hired a design. We're doing this through a design build, a progressive design build project delivery, where we have an integrated team that does the engineering design as well as the construction. And we have a joint venture, Burns and McDonnell and Alvarez Construction, that comprise Wichita Water Partners. That's our design build team. They have, I believe it's 14 other firms that are associated with them. So it's a very large team that we're working with. And I didn't list it here, but we also have an owner's representative. They help us with plan reviews and a lot of the technical aspects of managing some of the work that we have and the clearance with KDHE that we have and whatnot. So we have Garber Engineering as our owner's rep. The project is financed by a federal WIFIA loan, the Water Infrastructure Finance Innovation Act, which was passed several years ago, as well as Kansas State Revolving Loan Fund. Those two sources have a deferred repayment that have allowed us to gradually raise rates over a long period of time and keep the rate increases at about 5% or lower and still construct the water plant. The project overall, with some associated improvements, land acquisition, is $553 million. So this is, I believe, the largest single infrastructure project in our history. There's an oversight committee that's kind of steered this along the way. 2 council members are on it, Brandon Johnson, Brian Fry, and we've got a number of stakeholders also on that committee overseeing it. And the council issued a notice to proceed, a limited notice to proceed last December. That allowed us to do some early work out on the site, which there's some pictures of here where we did some site grading, improved the drainage profile leading up to an on-site pond that we have that provides drainage for the site and nearby neighborhoods. Ordered some of the pipe and got a work site ready. The last 2 pictures on the right are something that's turning into something we call Trailer City, where we're going to be putting in a bunch of trailers for the contractor, city staff, and our owner's rep to work out of. Since 2019, we've taken a number of steps. Again, council approved it in February. Got guaranteed maximum price from the design build team last September. It was too high for us to want to move forward with. So we spent 2 months going through a value engineering review and optimizing the treatment plant. Got the price down for the plant down to where it was $14 million under budget. So we took that last October, submitted our WIFIA application, and went through the steering committee, and ultimately the council approved the final GMP and that limited notice to proceed last December. In terms of what we did this year, we've acquired land just down on 13th Street, across the street from Sedgwick County Park, where we need to put in a power substation. Evergy needs to build a standalone substation to serve this one facility. The site location allows us to keep from having to put in any overhead power lines, so that's very helpful for us. We finalized the credit agreement with WIFIA and secured an interest rate of 1.17%, which is probably one of the lowest interest rates we've ever had in terms of a loan. So that's been very helpful. We acquired an additional site over near Zoo Boulevard that allows us to have an optimum space layout. We actually had a groundbreaking ceremony here about 3 weeks ago where we had KDHE, EPA, and other officials kind of have more of the ceremonial groundbreaking. And most importantly, on November 3rd, here this past week, the City Council, while also approving the first state revolving loan fund, issued the full notice to proceed. So at this point, we are off to the races, getting everything constructed. It's going to be a busy next 3 years or so, 4 years. And we're expecting to stay on target with our schedule, which right now means that the new plant would be substantially complete September of 2024, at which point we'll have a fully redundant facility that provides higher water quality than KDHE standards. So we're very excited about it. So hopefully I didn't talk too long. Overview of public works, street services, as well as the new water plant. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
I have a few questions under the fleet.
Yeah.
I read where transit leases their tires. Is that correct?
I don't know. So we do not manage the transit fleet out of Public Works. I think I've heard the same, but you'd probably want to check with Mike Tan, our transit director, to know for sure.
The fueling stations, are they just for government vehicles or do they include retail outlets?
Only our city vehicles, as well as our MABCD vehicles that are owned by the county. Those are the only ones that can use it.
How do we determine when to replace vehicles?
We have a decision support tool, which is an analytics model that helps guide what our replacement intervals should be for each of our asset classes. And what it looks at is the annual maintenance and repair costs, along with the amount of downtime that's associated with each type of equipment as they age through their life cycle. And so it uses prescriptive analytics basically to assign a replacement interval, say 10 years or 11 years or 14 years, based on the type of asset that it is. And then for that, that's how we budget how much to have ready to go based on each asset class, like patrol vehicles, for example, or fire apparatus. And then individual replacement decisions are made. We use a scorecard approach that's been provided by the American Public Works Association, or we rate each asset based on a number of factors, like how much downtime is it experiencing, are the maintenance and repair costs at a certain level where it makes more sense to economically to replace it. So we have a decision support tool that allows us to budget for all 2,300 pieces of equipment. But when we get down to the individual replacement of the one asset, we look at that particular asset's performance before making that decision.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks. Okay. That's all I had, Maddie. Did that help? Is that what you were wanting us to cover?
That is perfect. That really helps. That's the type of information that we feel lots of questions on, that residents are curious about. So that was wonderful. I'm definitely going to be sharing this video with people, and I don't think I had any questions on Facebook. I know some people are watching on Facebook, but I haven't seen any questions or comments yet.
Okay.
Gary, did you have anything you wanted to present today?
I do.
Okay, let's kick it off to Gary then.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I had a.
Do you want me to make you host of the meeting so you can share?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do.
Ben, if you click on my name in the more button, can you go ahead and make me host again?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I just did.
Yes, you did. Okay.
Perfect.
Gary, I'm making you co-host. Tell me if for some reason you don't have screen sharing ability with that.
Hang on a minute.
There we go. I see your screen. Lonnie, do you see it?
Yeah. So hopefully Lonnie does. If you do, I would assume.
Yes.
I'll assume that as well. Okay.
So I had a little bit more detailed information on another PowerPoint that got stuck on another laptop. So I've got a loaner. So I scrambled to put a few things together this morning. So not the best quality on a few pictures, but I had to get a few things from somewhere else. Mostly I wanted to talk about where we're currently at on a couple of capital projects. And specifically Mount Vernon from Broadway to Southeast Boulevard. I was going to talk about the Harry Street Bridge. We're working on design for an event center at Watson Park. I'll briefly touch on, and then I want to talk about a big sewer project we have coming near I-135 South in Pawnee. So I'll start with Mount Vernon. This project has been under construction for some time now, with the goal to widen Mount Vernon to 3 lanes from Broadway to Southeast Boulevard. And we're making progress, as you can see here. We've worked this basically in 3 block sections. There's significant drainage improvements here, pretty deep work, a lot of underground work that limits our ability to keep the road open like we normally would try to. So I think it's worked fairly well. We do a lot in advance of these projects, working with the neighborhoods. And especially when you've got things like Gardner Elementary down here, of trying to work with the school in advance on what traffic patterns might look like, how access will work. We've all been battling through the COVID, but I will tell you right now in some areas of town where we've got construction adjacent to schools, it's actually helped to have the schools when they were not in session was not necessarily a bad thing for us. But this project's moving along. We've had quite a bit of significant work at Southeast Boulevard utility wise. We have an existing 36-inch diameter water line that's primary water source for Southeast Wichita and Derby that had to be relocated so that we could provide some drainage improvements. So we've been doing that work for a while. It's had the intersection closed. This is a 54-inch diameter storm sewer that's being bored underneath the railroad as required by their specifications. Pretty complex work. It just takes some time to get through it. That's what's had most of that area closed off for a while. We do plan to have Southeast Boulevard back open to through traffic by Thanksgiving. The turns onto Mount Vernon will still be limited and mostly prohibited, but we'll be winding down on quite a bit of this work by the end of the month. That project itself on Mount Vernon is expected to be fully completed by next spring. As always, this time of year, never knowing what the Kansas weather is going to do. Ben talked about that quite a bit with our snow and ice operations. We can hopefully keep going. You know, if you look at the forecast for the next couple of weeks, it looks really good. But we'll see what happens with winter, because unfortunately we can come to a point in time where construction operations really slow down. One thing nice about concrete pavement, which this is we can work through a lot more adverse weather than we would otherwise with asphalt streets. Harry Street Bridge, we had a little bit of a delay on this end of the project, being the east end, working through some permitting issues with the Kansas Department of Wildlife, Parks and Tourism. There are issues we work through quite often, and we need to be cognizant of working in the river environment. If we get into spawning season for certain types of species of fish, it limits what we can do. And unfortunately, we did hit a timing issue here where we had to kind of stop work on this end, but things are moving forward now. And we are just about ready. You can see all the reinforcing steel here on this bridge deck. We're about ready to pour this deck. It should be done. This part of it, with getting all the concrete in here, should be done by Thanksgiving. Hopefully, if everything goes right, we'll have the bridge open to traffic by the end of the year, but it may push into January. This is going to depend on the weather too. So I might go back. These bridge piers, if you can kind of see where there's a vertical part of this bridge pier, we do have some pretty cool aesthetic elements that will be going on this bridge, some lighted spires. We've got an artist as part of this design team, and we spent some time working through the design council, along with input from Councilmember Clendenin. I think it's going to look really cool when it's done, and add a nice, really nice artistic elements for the area and the neighborhood, especially at night with the lighting on it. So we're excited to get to that point and see how that looks. We also have less piers in the river than there was with the old bridge, which is always good for a lot of reasons in maintaining the river and even for future maintenance of the bridge itself. I wanted to talk then about this sewer project near the south end of town. And there's a lot on this map. We've got quite a bit of history over the last year with public involvement and meetings on this, but I'll see if I can walk everybody through this, at least anybody who's watching. To the right on this map is north. And so on the top half of this screen, starting at the left, is our wastewater treatment plant number 1, effectively here at Southeast Boulevard and 135 where they come together. The light blue line is our sewer main that's still in place. The orange line then, and if you go to the bottom of the screen, keeps going up past Harry, Lincoln, all the way up to English on the north end. That light blue and orange line was built in about 1954, and the majority of that was 78-inch diameter. So keep in mind that 6.5-foot diameter pipe. This section of sanitary sewer effectively collects almost 60% of all wastewater discharge within the city. So it dealt with the original core of the city as Wichita developed basically from the center out and continued to grow. It still takes on about 60% of our raw sewage on a daily basis, which is an average of about 30 million gallons a day, and can peak well over 80 million gallons a day, and even higher than that when we get into the rainy season. So keep in mind 1954, there's sections of this pipe that are still in place now that are almost 70 years old. So in 1964, so I'll tell you that when that sewer was built, Interstate Highway was not there. The canal route was not there. In 1964, KDOT and Federal Highway started planning this part of the Interstate Highway system. The decision was made to leave the sewer in place. So you can see all of that orange and blue all of the orange was under the northbound lanes of I-135, and what's left in the light blue portion is still under the southbound lanes. So we went in 2012 or 2008, I apologize. And what you see with the pink and the yellow, primarily on the bottom of this page, we replaced all of that orange and we moved it over through the residential neighborhoods so that orange line is now abandoned and no longer in place. So we eliminated a huge future risk, especially for as old as that pipe was getting, of having problems associated with the interstate. And also, if you start thinking about the idea of a pipe this size failing, of what that could potentially do to backups into thousands and thousands of homes and other problems that could be caused. So having this new infrastructure in place is going to last us a long time. So where we're currently at then is what's left in place is this light blue line on top, primarily on Blake and running down 135. So we've got a plan in place now. This is the same light blue line you see. That's a 60-inch diameter line going down Blake, 78-inch diameter again under the southbound lanes of 135. Our plan now with the purple line is we will intercept that line, the sewage that comes through Blake, into a line going down Southeast Boulevard. What that will allow us to do is route a smaller line through this existing neighborhood south of Pawnee and east of Southeast Boulevard. That's only about 4 feet in diameter. That's a pretty big pipe, but that makes us more manageable for working through that neighborhood. We looked at as many as 60 options of different routing, different size pipes, going through all these neighborhoods, looking at the east side of the highway, looking at the west side, spending time with KDOT and Federal Highway, looking at options there. We really think we're in a good place now, and this is the design that we're moving forward with. We sponsored a neighborhood meeting to discuss the project, and we presented this to the district advisory board. City council approved the concept. So we are now under design and planning to be under construction by next spring, hopefully. We have a lot of experience with these big pipe projects from a construction standpoint, working with the neighborhoods, trying to limit inconvenience. You know, as we get to working in this neighborhood, putting in that big of a pipe, there will be a change in access for some period of time, as there will be on Southeast Boulevard. But this is a critical project for our sewer infrastructure. Again, looking at the area that it serves, this is something that we need to keep moving forward on. The approximate total project cost is $20 million. And that will be funded effectively by the ratepayers at large across the city, and the funding is included in our capital improvement program. So this is a project we're looking forward to getting underway, getting under construction so that we can get that pulled pipe abandoned and out of our system and really lower our risk going forward. So this is coming. Maddie will certainly keep you posted, and there will be plenty of information that goes out to the public prior to any of this starting. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and I don't have anything for it right now, and I wish I did. I had it on my other PowerPoint. We have been working on a multi-event center at Watson Park. We originally bid the project and the cost came in considerably higher than we had hoped. And so we've gone back to the drawing board because of some challenges overall with city revenues and looking at our budgets right now. The city manager challenged us to try to find a way to make it fit within the existing budget, which we're working on. So we've got staff working with the architect to find ways that we can look at bringing the cost down on the facility without necessarily losing a lot of size on the footprint. I think it's going to have to get a little bit smaller. We're looking at some of the features, some of the layout, things like parking, whatever we can do to save costs. So at some point here in time, I would hope in the next couple of months, we hope to have a plan to go back to the city council. And we may even take that back before the district advisory board again to get their input before going to city council. But we hope to get that back on track and maybe have something under construction in by next spring, but we'll see how that goes. I don't think I had anything else, Maddie. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions. Ben talked about the outsourced pavement preservation. We're winding down the 2020 program now. And with the 2021 program, which can be seen online, anyone in District 3 across the city can see there's maps there that shows the locations of projects and the type of pavement treatments that will be undertaken at those locations. So we will start bidding projects late this year and have that work underway hopefully by next spring. So I think that was all I got. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of the significant District 3 projects that people are eager to know more about, excited to see. So Lonnie, you got anything for us? I don't have any questions from Facebook yet.
What are the new water pipes made out of?
So it kind of depends on the size, Lonnie. So when we get into, I know you asked water, but I'll give you an example on this sewer that's on the screen. This size of pipe, you kind of get limited on the types of materials, but this is actually a polymer modified fiberglass pipe that we typically use on this big a sewer. If you saw that picture I had on that 36-inch diameter water line on Mount Vernon, it can vary. This is probably ductile iron pipe because of the way it's wrapped. It's kind of hard for me to see the joints there. We have several options on bigger waterline pipe, including ductile iron and PVC works pretty well too. When you get to be a larger size pipe, and especially if we're going to have any type of required joint system where we need to restrain joints, where we've got fittings, where we've got bends in the pipe, there's a lot that goes into evaluating pipe type and joint systems with that. And we work with our engineers specifically and the pipe suppliers determine the best material, because a lot of times we need to restrain those joints. There's a lot of thrust on a 36-inch diameter pressure pipe anytime you put a bend in it, right? And so we've got to restrain, we've got to resist that thrust. We've got to have a restraining system that will keep that pipe in place long term. So all that plays together. And I know that's not the most specific answer, but we continue to look at emerging technologies and pipe materials. We hear from vendors quite often. We also utilize polyethylene pipe when we can, because it's got a more simplified joint system. But especially when we get into the bigger pipes. On the smaller pipes, we primarily look at PVC pipe on sewer and water both. It's shown that it's durable. The joint systems work well. It's easy installation. It helps save costs long term. So a lot of what we have in the ground on our smaller pipe is almost exclusively PVC pipe.
That's a great answer. Do you reline existing pipes?
We do. So one of and I appreciate you asking that. On our sewer systems, you saw Ben talk about having over 2,000 miles of sewer collection system in the ground, and those pipes can range in size from, as small as 6 and 8 inch diameter up to the 78 inch that we talked about. We do, but we've got something that we've done for quite a few years now that's working really, really well for us, especially in our neighborhood areas and in the core of the city, where we had old vitrified clay pipe is a lot of areas. And we'll find in some neighborhood areas that we go in there and televise that pipe, and there's effectively almost no pipe left. And what's happened over time is the ground has formed itself around the pipe, and luckily it's still holding in place. And I know that sounds a little bit strange, but it's not unique to us. A lot of communities see that. So we've had a program in place for some time now, and we've got almost $5 million allocated in our capital improvement program each year for replacement of those collection systems. And one of the best things I think we've done is what we call cured in place pipe. And so it's basically a liner that is inverted and run through the pipe, and then steam is used to cure it. It effectively creates a new PVC pipe inside of an old one. One of the things that happens is you lose a little bit of the size. So if you had an 8-inch diameter pipe and you go in and line that, you are going to have a little bit smaller than an 8-inch diameter pipe when you're done. But we've done enough study and analysis of that to know that that does not cause any issues for us from a capacity standpoint. It's been a great thing for us. We utilize that process yearly and spend quite a bit of money going in and relining pipes, because then we're not digging up people's backyards. It's a lot more convenient. It's a lot quicker. And it allows us to do things in areas that we normally would not have been able to do in the past.
Where do we treat stormwater?
So I might let, if Ben's still on and wants to jump in on that, but I can tell you, we've got in various areas, one of the examples I'll give you, and this is not, we don't have a lot of places like this, but we've become a lot more aware of the need for this in the past few years. We have a large storm sewer system in place that starts at the Ark River just north of Pawnee, and it makes its way through just south of our water distribution area and ends up at Meridian at about Orient. And if you're familiar with the Meridian corridor from Pawnee to Kellogg and how bad that drainage was for many years, in fact, it was probably one of the worst areas in the city as far as even becoming to a point of being a life safety issue during big enough rain events. Over the last 5 to 10 years, we built a system, a large box culvert system over to that area that has made a huge difference. And I think was one of the best investments, at least we've made in my career. But there is a large structure on our property west of McLean, south of water distribution. I wish I had a picture for reference. And what that facility does is it captures all the trash and everything else that goes through that system before dumping it into the river. You would be amazed to see at any point in time how much trash is in there. And it's really unfortunate that it's that way, but I'm certainly glad that we built that structure there. I think the cost of that structure alone was probably in the range of $800,000. Overall, that was probably $6 to $7 million stormwater system we built. But it's been a good thing. So we have to go in and clean that thing out on occasion because it gets so full that it will start restricting the flow of stormwater through it. We also have the same thing in place with some of our stormwater pump stations for Kellogg. When we built the Kellogg Freeway, you get the freeway is depressed and you can't have positive drainage out, so everything has to go through a pump station. And we also filter out the trash there. We have requirements. Ben talked about our MS4 permit. We have requirements on all of our construction projects to use best management practices. And we've got a really good program that came online in the last 2 years that I could talk to you more about offline sometime, Lonnie. But it's working with farmers in the area for no-till farming. And it's called an offsite BMP, and effectively we pay for credits to have area farmers look at no-till farming because it has a much bigger impact overall on water quality for our river system, our streams, everything that feeds into what we do, and even our direct processes on our single projects, if you will. So we still utilize best management practices. If you see on our projects where we've got different types of facilities in front of stormwater inlets, anything that we can do to help limit runoff into our streams, especially when you can see this picture right here. You start disturbing large areas, when we get rain events or whatever it is, that dirt's got to go somewhere, and it's going to try to find its way into our stormwater system. So I think we've done a great job over the last 5 or 10 years, really stepping up on that. And I know that was a lot of stuff, Lonnie, but if you're interested sometime, I've got a lot more specific information on that if you're interested.
So we don't treat stormwater except for we try to restrict the chemicals from even getting into the stormwater.
We do, and we actually have some structures in place in a few areas that provide, I wouldn't call it treatment, but as much as anything, it's trying to keep the chemicals and trash out of the area. We do not treat stormwater per se in the same way that we do wastewater, raw sewage. And Ben, if you've got something to add to that, please do.
Yeah, I was going to say, really, I mean, Gary touched on the offsite BMP program, where that's been particularly helpful. So for commercial developers, they used to have to put these hydrodynamic separators in parking lots, and those are expensive to put in, and they're expensive to have to go and clean out because it would catch all that trash and debris and ultimately improve water quality. So we're able to get better water quality gains with our river here in town just by having the no-till farming up north of here. Street sweeping, again, that's another one of those things that's designed to keep that stuff out of the storm sewers. So it's not a treatment per se, but it does have an impact on water quality. The other thing I'd add too is if you go through any newer developments in Wichita, you see ponds all over the place. Those are water quality improvements, effectively providing natural treatment to drainage water before it hits the storm sewer system. So that's another way, another very important best management practice, I think, that gets the water quality to be more in line with what KDHE's want from us. So those ponds have helped a lot. Gary probably knows the pain that those sometimes cause the developers, but those are water quality improvements for our storm sewer system as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's all I had, Maddie.
Okay. Lonnie, you got all your answers?
Yes, I'm pleased to be able to take advantage of this opportunity. It helps me.
Thank you for joining us. Lonnie, do you attend the WIN and City of Wichita meeting?
What meeting?
The Wichita Independent Neighborhood and City of Wichita meeting in November.
Yes.
Okay, so you might get a repeat on some of this stuff when we have them attend that meeting, but I'm guessing you'll have more questions by then anyway.
Lonnie, you're going to get the upgrade. It'll be Aaron Henning and Don Henry instead of me.
I need to hear things more than once.
Oh, good. Okay, we have had a lot of people watching our Facebook stream. Nobody has posted questions, so we will go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you, Public Works, for joining us today. I appreciate the information. I know our residents do. And we'll see you guys again here in a few weeks for the WIN meeting.
Sounds good. Thanks, Maddie. Thank you, Lonnie.
Thanks, Maddie, and
Thanks,
you, Lonnie.
Enjoy your weekend, everyone.
See you guys.
Thank you.